Thank you.
One.
Welcome back. I'm here with two of the stars of Queer Eye, Jonathan Van Ness and Antoni Porowski. Welcome, y'all.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having us.
We actually go by JV Antoni.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no big deal. It's totally cool.
It's not a big
It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Joining me now is JV Antoni.
Yes.
Okay, well, I want to talk about the show, of course. So the latest season takes place in Japan. So did you do anything in particular to prepare for the cultural differences when it came to styling hair and also preparing food?
Yeah, gorgeous question. Historically and culturally, I did do a fair amount of research to just kind of figure out what trends and what beauty ideals were just heading into where we are now. Just kind of what was fierce Japanese hair like in the 1800s? What was it like in 1900s? What was it like? What techniques were going on? What are the classic ideals of beauty that I might not have any clue about? I also do feel, though, that just generally with the Japan episodes, I tried to go into them a lot more as a student and a lot more just learning more. And so I didn't do hours on hours on hours of research. I did some research, but I really wanted to go in more as a student and less of an expert, so that I could just learn and observe. And if there was something I could do to help or to connect with that person, then fabulous. But I definitely wasn't going and trying to judge or change anything. I was really more, except for trying to make sure that everyone was loving themselves.
But
if
also,
that wasn't happening in the first place.
I think we were also prepared very differently for it as well. Even arriving, there's a lot of different cultural differences in sort of how you enter a home. You take your shoes off. Which I feel like is something we should do as New Yorkers.
I do that now.
I do that now as well.
Yeah.
I became that Sex and the City person.
Yeah, but all of us had to have that talk with everybody on production, running in and the grips and the sound technicians. We all had to sort of learn how to be respectful within that environment and not just kind of throw in, you know what I mean? What worked in the U.S. doesn't necessarily work out there. And for food, I had all these hopes and dreams of only making Japanese food. But what I learned is at the end of the day, it's what the hero needs. And sometimes the season's out now, so I can talk about it. But there was actually only 2 of the 4 episodes we actually made Japanese food. There was a classic Szechuan dish that we made, and then traditional French baking, which we tapped into because that's what the hero wanted to do. So that's what we made.
And that omelet over amarisu.
Omurisu. That was a Japanese one.
So good.
So good.
Bomb.
Was there anything else that really surprised you that you learned while you were in Japan?
Yes.
From a food standpoint, the efficiency, the attention to precision and detail of they put so much care into everything that they do. And I've said that a lot about traveling to Italy, but I feel in Japan they really have that down. And it just had me be a little more respectful of food. I know that's a general thing to say, but it really has me looking at food differently.
I feel I really kind of learned that the feeling of being detached from your friends and your loved ones, just kind of that lonely, a feeling of loneliness or a feeling of not belonging is very universal. And whether you are American or Japanese, no matter where you come from, we just really want to be loved. And I think that culturally, some societies will be more emotive or more effusive about their feelings. I think in America, where at least I can speak for me, my heart is on my sleeve. I tell you most of everything that I'm thinking. And I think in Japan, that is not exactly how things are. You would not necessarily people are not as communicative. When I approach situations in Japan, there is a lot of ooh, you are sharing a lot. There's you are sharing a lot. And I think that really once we got to connect and really get to know people, a lot of the things that we were sharing right up front are things that they were feeling and had the same fears and the same feelings of disconnection. They just socially don't go about communicating it in the same way that maybe we would.
Looking back now on all the past seasons, do you all ever look back and think oh, maybe I would have done something a little different in that moment? Do you have any moments that you would have redone?
I've never made any mistakes, I wouldn't know, but yes,
so
no, absolutely. For season 1, episode 1, it was Tom Jackson. Remember at the end of the week, it was really hot. It was I think 137 degrees outside.
Yeah, but they couldn't tell on TV.
They couldn't, no, but when we had lemonade, and instead of making sure that it was actually drinkable lemonade, I didn't have a culinary assistant at the time, so what they ended up putting in the lemonade pitcher that I was then sharing with you and with Bobby.
It was just lemon concentrate.
It was pure lemon concentrate, no sugar, no water, and just ice cubes. And I think there were even plastic ice cubes in there, so it was also warm.
It was really hot.
And we were trying to control our faces while we're sweating and just trying not to
really
pucker. And it's you really need to be diligent and kind of check everything because you never know when you're going to be drinking something.
My biggest one is Ted Terry. Like, I would have never, like, I'll be honest, I never wanted to take that beard off. I was very pro-beard. I was very pro-resistance beard. I definitely got my little arm twisted on that.
Well, I do want to talk about some of your other work before we go. Jonathan, of course, you have a new, deeply personal memoir that is out in the world. So how does it feel just to have it out there?
Definitely a weight off my shoulders. Also was kind of a big wake-up call as far as like the amount of work that is still left to go and the amount of education that still needs to be shared, and just kind of like the real constant stigma and discrimination that HIV positive people face is like really pervasive, and it's really worldwide, and people are really struggling with it. I think that, you know, the book was an amazing opportunity for me to be able to be honest and open about, you know, my path, but it really is kind of just, it's like, it was like, you know, closing that book, so to speak, like opened up like a gigantic new one that I'm, you know, now jumping into. So, yeah, but I'm happy that it went the way that it did, but I am really ready to just continue the good fight.
Yeah, I mean, are there any reactions that really struck a chord with you, or that you were surprised? By?
I think there's been there's been so many people that have like shared their status with me and have, you know, have just shared with me like their struggles or their ways of coping with living with their HIV, and just finding strength in my ability to be open about my status. My biggest surprise though is the lack of knowledge that people still have though. Yeah. The amount of times that I've been told like, I'm so sorry for your diagnosis, just really not having an understanding of like where we are in 2019 on HIV treatment. It's like, I don't need anyone to apologize for my status. What I need is for people in power and politicians to make a social safety net for people living with HIV much more readily accessible so that we can stop the spread of the virus. So I just think that there is just still so much understanding and fear around HIV that I think I knew that, but I've had certain people that are really knowledgeable, powerful people like feel that they need to like apologize for my status, and I think that has been really eye-opening.
Antoni, hearing this, do you feel proud of him? How does it make you feel?
Immensely proud. I think it's, you know, we're in this incredible position where like I think what we've learned from Queer Eye, and it's tying it back to what you were talking about in Japan, where like when you open up and you're vulnerable with somebody, it allows them to be vulnerable in return. It's a conversation, and that's what Jonathan is doing outside of the show, and I think that that's incredible.
And you also have a book out recently. Yeah, how's it been going?
Cookbook. It's been great. Got to tour the country and was in the UK, and then ended up in Canada, and it was in. I still try to like live in this ignorance of thinking that we're like this little niche whichever show where like people don't really know about it, but you get to travel and like meet people whose lives, you know, we've affected with the work that we're doing and this like awesome team that we're on, and just like meet those people face to face. That's really my favorite part.
Well, listen, y'all, this was really fun. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it was so delightful. Queer Eye, We're in Japan is on Netflix now.